What God says about financial prosperity is astonishing. First, unchangeable God, what God speaks is immutable. Deuteronomy 14 verse 22 states, "You shall properly tithe all the growth of your grain which the field yields yearly." All of the pastor's extended preaching and discussions regarding tithing are outright lies. They are all aware that they are lying. But all we need to know is what God says about financial prosperity. They often rely on their sweet tongues to manipulate people's emotions. Nonetheless, they would not instruct followers on what God commands regarding financial giving and how to benefit from obeying the Lord. Pastors' teachings and extensive discussions on tithes are blatant lies. They all know they are deceitful. They frequently depend on their cleverness to manipulate people's emotions. Many of them have also written cunning trickery tomes, childishly misleading YouTube videos, and misleading financial campaigns on cable channels. Similarly, they are likely to go to hell for using the Lord's words to enrich themselves. Trust me, even though they do not care about facing eternal doom as long as they have zero figures in their bank accounts. Here is how to benefit from what God says about financial prosperity. 1. God despises deceit. Do the pastors flatter you? 2. Ye did not request that you tithe money. 3. Do you follow God's commandments regarding offerings? 4. Dear brethren, tithes should consist of agricultural products and wine if you are keen to pay them. If you are not a farmer, please provide only the offering. Christianity and Judaism are distinct faiths. Ask your pastor to construct a warehouse for your tithes. Remember what the Lord told the Jews. Bring the whole tithe into the storehouse so that there may be food in my house, Malachi 3 verse 10. That is the command not to bring cash. Therefore, what God says about financial prosperity and how it can benefit us is what we need for our story to change. To tithe, set aside 1/10 of your produce, for example. Maize, cassava, wheat, olive oil, rubber, sesame, sorghum, gum arabic, cashews, tomatoes, and wine for the church workers to ensure a steady supply in the church storehouse. Furthermore, no pastor seeking tithes will ever speak the truth. Besides, they do not speak for the Lord on the matter. Pastors are more interested in lining their pockets and bank accounts with selfish desires rather than encouraging you to obey God's commandments. For if you obey the Lord, you will prosper. King Jehoshaphat stood and said, "Hear me, O Judah and you inhabitants of Jerusalem, believe in the Lord your God, and you shall be established." Furthermore, after making your cash contribution, let pastors discuss tithes until the spit has dried in their mouths. Avoid feeling concerned. Do not tithe every coin that falls into your hands, as they say. God asks that the Jews tithe on agricultural produce. Contributing money during the church offering is God's will. Fulfill God's will. Follow what He commands. Adhere to what God says regarding financial prosperity. After all, it was not an oversight that Jesus did not ask us Christians to bring tithes, despite the frequently misquoted verses in Matthew 23 verse 23 and Luke 4 verse 42. Another point is that the two verses mentioned above relate to almsgiving. For instance, He requested money as an offering, rather than tithes. Nevertheless, everything the Lord says or does is a memorial to hold onto and recall. Each individual who crosses over to those already counted must give, according to the sanctuary shekel. A half shekel weighs 20 gerahs. Exodus 30 verse 13, this half shekel is an offering to the Lord. Also, the Lord said to Moses, "Receive the atonement money from the Israelites, and use it to maintain the tent for the meeting." It was a memory for the Israelites before the Lord, making atonement for your lives. Exodus 30 verse 16. Payment instructions that God provided us through Moses. Can you perceive how precise the Lord was in His commands? Every person, both rich and poor, shall contribute half a shekel. Paid by those in their 20s and older. Collections are for church or tent maintenance. As it is a memorial, there is no room for misunderstanding. Making offerings, not tithes, is a form of atonement for one's life. It is equally important to remember that this is the path to prosperity. Therefore, adhere to His guidance to remain blessed. Consequently, to a good measure, they pressed down, shook together, and ran over. Shall men give into your bosom? To do so and please Jesus, we ought to practice what God says about financial prosperity. And note how effortlessly He will enlarge our borders.